Welcome back to the Turn on the Music podcast. My name is Kyle. We have episode 7 this week. We've got CJ here as usual. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Did you almost forget what episode we were on? I mean,
I know,
chapter by chapter.
I just said it. I looked at it and I was like, wait a second.
Am I right?
It's been one of those weeks. So
it's only, as we record,
weeks.
it's only Wednesday.
Yeah, I know. So
we're
how you
both
doing
a little good. I think we're both a little overtired tonight.
Something.
So it's gonna be interesting. This is actually a good chapter to do overtired.
Yes. It's not a long chapter. 5 minutes and we're out of here. So
yeah, I'm doing well. I'm doing all right. Besides the, overtiredness, it was a long day yesterday. I was at work at 8 and didn't get home until like 9 o'clock at night.
Oh,
this was one of those days.
Yeah, gotcha.
Doesn't happen often, but sometimes it happens. So can't complain.
That's good.
Yeah. How about yourself?
It's been rough lately, and it's getting worse, but we'll see what happens. It'll be fun.
At work?
Yeah. Yeah, just chaos is erupting and in weird ways, and just...
It's absolute chaos.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's all right.
Are you listening to anything good, though?
You know what? I was listening to Robert Randolph and the Family Band on the way to work today.
It's one of those days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've been doing a lot of Hannah Wickland.
Ooh.
Well, not that there's much out there to listen to her stuff, but
yeah,
I've been listening to her a lot.
But her stuff is good, though.
Her stuff is good, and Victor, doing some listen to Victor Wooten, and then we've been on an 80s kick at work.
Oh yeah,
like 80s rock.
Cool.
Because it's been like the vibe has been a little weird in the office, not in a bad way. I think just everybody's kind of overtired and it's been busy and it's going to get busier.
Right.
And we were kind of like, we need something kind of like punchy in a sense.
Right.
And like 80s rock is like perfect for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I brought my speakers home when you came, and I'm like, should I bring them back? So I might bring them back tomorrow. Kind of missing them. So.
Well, can you play at work? Like I know in the past you did, but like now even.
Yeah, I mean with the new guy, I mean, I guess I could. Honestly, I need it, so, I set it up so he can, fill up the playlist too. So.
Okay, so you can kind of get a mixture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So, that's good.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll bring him in tomorrow. We'll see.
But yeah, it's definitely been window weather, like windows down.
Yep.
Good music. Oh, I listened to Ozzy Osbourne's Patient Number 9 album today.
Oh, nice.
That's another good one.
That
like another
good
windows down, enjoy the music.
Yep.
So I like it because it's not like crazy heavy metal, but there's just enough in there to kind of, and it's a great album with everybody he collaborates with on it. So yeah, that was the other one.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, shall we get into the book?
I guess we shall.
All right. One of my favorite chapters, as we were discussing before, because it's
the shortest chapter ever. What?
I don't know why I like this one so much, but I do. I like Sam. He's I don't know.
Well, because there's so much. I think my impression of the reason why you probably like it so much is that, not without on the serious sense, it is one of the shorter chapters in the book. Mm-hmm. But it's probably one of the most poignant chapters of the book. Yep. Because of what it's about. Mm-hmm. So, I get it. Like I get that.
Yeah.
And another chapter where I read through it and I'm like, what am I going to underline it? And then I listened to it. I'm like, what am I going to underline? And then I read it again. I'm like, I know what I'm going to underline. Like I know what stands out to me. So, and it seems like a lot of those chapters moving forward are like that, but like in a good way, because it's making me kind of revisit them in such a way where I'm like, what did I miss? Or did I miss something? Or,
Yep.
Because it's hard not to take a lot out of each chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I think this one for me is the most practical musically Like I've used this chapter a lot in like teaching.
Okay.
So
In your showings
in my showings, yes.
versus your teachings and your
Yes.
showings.
So this is measure 7 rhythm
Slash tempo.
slash tempo. Yes.
That's the visual one. The
Or
slash is visual.
It's hack tempo.
What'd you say?
Hack. Rhythm hack
And
tempo.
for the nerdy type, / tempo.
And the opening little quote is, if you pay attention correctly, it won't matter if you're in another room or another state, you'll still be able to feel the pulse.
So before we go any further than that, what do you think about that?
Have you ever tried it?
In the sense of what?
The thing that Sam does at the end.
Yes. But many moons ago.
Mm-hmm. I got really good at it for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought you meant like, I mean, so he says that no matter if you're in another room or in another state. So let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Does he talk about state of mind or physical state, like where he's at?
I think in this case he's referring to state.
Like a physical place.
Physical place.
And you know, after reading the chapter a second time, I feel like part of it is state of mind.
I think partly too, yeah.
So whatever state of mind you're in, because sometimes you go to a gig or you go to play and you're just not in the right state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could still feel the pulse.
Right.
You know? Pulse. I didn't say that right. Pulse.
Pulse.
Interesting. Okay. After you, sir.
All right. So, the chapter starts with Victor waking up with a headache. And Victor is a little bit like me, where he's a big fan of orange juice and not a fan of like water and alcohol. So, in fact, right before we started, I had a big thing of orange juice before I came in here. So,
I used to drink orange juice all the time.
Yeah,
it's
me
a little
too.
tough now for me to do it.
yeah, I tried to keep it in the house because I will drink the entire gallon in a day.
That's usually what, yes.
So, I bought some on Saturday, and it's lasted this long. I am very shocked. So, anyway, he comes back from his...
That is impressive.
Yeah, it is impressive. So anyway, Victor goes out, gets some orange juice because he didn't have any at home, and comes back, and there's this little kid sitting in his house. And so, yeah, I don't have much at the very, very beginning, but so we've talked a little bit about Sam, and Sam is a real human being. And when Sam was about this age, he played with the Wooten Brothers for a little while in Nashville.
Now, Sam in this book is 11.
Mm-hmm.
So he played with them when he was 11 years old.
About that, I guess. I don't. So
Yeah.
so the video. I have a video of him playing with them.
Saying, yeah.
And this video was uploaded 16 years ago. So
Okay.
I don't know. I forget how old he is now. Let me see if I can find that. Oops.
What does Sam do now? Do you know?
He's got some musical stuff out there. I think he's an engineer and a producer.
Okay. I could totally see that, though.
Let's see if
What is his last name?
Hunter.
Sam Hunter?
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't ever say it in the book.
No, they don't.
That's interesting.
Let's see if I can
So-
find his. So Sam was born in 1984.
Okay.
So if you figure 16 years ago would be 2007, 2006-ish. So he was
about 20-something.
23. But if you look at the video, he is not 20-something in that video.
Okay.
So,
I'm going to correct you.
okay, go ahead. Correct me.
So Sam Hunter was not born. What year did you say he was born?
84.
No, you have the wrong Sam Hunter. I looked at the same thing. That's a different Sam Hunter.
I sure did. Look at that. That's not him at all.
So Sam Hunter was born in 1992. So you said that was 2007?
Yep.
So he was at least
14 or 15.
14 or 15. So that's about right. There's actually a little page here that shows the audiobook and who are the performers, quote unquote, in the audiobook. And it lists like Michael Cott, who plays Michael,
Yep.
Chuck Rainey, who plays Uncle Clyde, and then Sam Hunter, who was born in 1992 in Nashville, where he currently resides. I don't know how old this page is, but it says he's a multi-instrumentalist, is a busy studio musician, a singer-songwriter, presuming. And I'd click on his website, but his website is for MySpace, and it's not working anymore.
And here's the interesting thing. So if you look here, it says you can also find Sam on page 58 of Bob Babbitt's new book. So he's been in 2 different musicians' books.
That's so interesting. So,
and that quote was from 15 years ago. Like, so at the age of 15, this kid is in like 2 books. Like, that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Because I was reading it, and the one that came up, I got a different one than you got, a different Sam, who was a playwright, but it also said he was a musician. So it threw me off completely because he was born in 1981 as well. That's not him. That's not the one I got.
And the one that I looked at, he's from Nashville, but it's looking at the picture, that is not Sam. So,
right. And the one I got was Samuel Hunter, who is a playwright from Moscow, Indiana, and born. So I guess it's a common name in a sense.
Yeah.
But
so there's a picture of older Sam.
Right. Yeah. It was very. That was too funny. So it looks like Sam does have an Instagram account under Sam Hunter Music, I should say, because this looks like that's him. But very interesting. So not to go off tangent, but so yeah. But that's his voice though. So that's very cool. I mean, I should say his voice on the audiobook is his voice.
Yep.
That's what I should be saying, because I'm listening to the audiobook and it's him. But so now that we know Sam is a real bass player, and he showed up randomly in Victor's house. Now that's very plausible. We really don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
And Victor's getting his glass of OJ because he doesn't know anything else.
Yep.
And he leans into, I don't know where you were going, so I'm gonna let you continue what you were doing.
So, they talk a little bit about his headache, and Sam says that the first thing you should do to feel better about your headache is to smile.
Oh, where are you?
148.
Oh, you jumped ahead. I was curious if you're going to say something. Let's go back for one page and then we'll go back to that.
Yeah.
I thought this was very interesting. Victor goes, for some reason, I also felt that he was here where he was supposed to be. Like, he was supposed to be in his house. He goes, kindness? No. Like, Sam didn't have any kindness. Politeness, if there is a difference, seemed to radiate from him. And apparently that helped ease Victor's mind. And I thought that was very interesting for him to point out that he wasn't too kind, but he was polite. And that helps. So it's very interesting. And I feel like that kind of leans into where you're going now.
Right.
Like you're bringing up smiling.
So he talks about smiling as a way to help his headache. And so later on it says, smile. Really, just smile. Think of something nice or funny that will make you smile, but it has to be real. It will help slow down your tempo a bit. Tempo and temper are related, you know. Which I thought was really interesting.
Do you think smiling makes that big of a difference? Yes. I mean, I do. I'm not asking like...
Yeah, I
do too.
Yeah.
I feel like we all get into our own heads at some point, and we're allowed to do that. But if you can kind of push through and force yourself to smile, it like sometimes reorganizes what's going through your head. And in a sense, in that moment of smiling, it almost like reevaluates what you're processing.
Right.
And it's weird that it does that. So, but I never thought about that in the sense of a headache. And whether that's true or not, I'm curious if it's true.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, scientifically, I'm sure there's studies that are done we could probably look into, but, you know.
Well, there's probably some form of like what do they say? It takes 4 muscles to smile and 420 something to frown.
Yeah, something like that.
and it's better for you to smile than to frown, but yet people can't seem to do
And
it.
it's what, 16 muscles to slap you in the face or something like that?
Or
Is that how that quote goes? Something like that?
I don't know, but it's like it's funny. But I do think that is interesting, and I think smiling does calm you down.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, we've worked in multiple environments where we were required to deal with the everyday general public.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that in a negative manner. We're just the everyday general public.
Yep.
And we both use humor. Ours kind of teeter differently, but we play off each other's humor well. But we do. We have different humor in a sense, but our humor works together, which is kind of funny.
Yep.
But in the sense of like when we're talking to somebody, our humor is a little bit different, but it works.
Yeah.
Like it easily breaks the ice. It loosens the tension that may be there already. It helps the person's anxiety that we may be dealing with at that moment.
Yep.
And it's funny how that works.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I do that with my son all the time. When my son is having a rough day and he's like sitting in front of me or he's crying, like I totally tease him and make fun of him, and he starts laughing. He's like, "Oh, okay." It's like one of the things. It's like throwing a cat across the room and throwing them off for a loop. You know?
That's right.
Where did I go?
And there was a guy that I worked with, and you worked with him too. But like when we worked together, we worked at the Genius Bar together, and like where we were, it was super busy, but it was a lot of people who were complaining about like things that they broke, and it was like, so we tried to find ways to liven it up and have fun. And I actually kept a giant book of like trivia questions, and I refused to help people until they answered a trivia question. Just because, like, why not? So and people looked forward to coming to do that. It was a fun thing. So
I know exactly what you're talking about, and when I worked with him, he was my manager, and but he had this. It was that same mentality. Like I knew when I was on the floor, like I can kind of do what I need to do to make things work and make things happen. So it's true. It's just that this. And listen, I say this with the fact that I know it's easier said than done.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do. I still deal with my anxieties. I still deal with my overthinking. But there are times when it hits and I'm kind of like, wait a second. Let me step back and think about that. That's why I like the song "Smile," written by Charlie Chaplin. Because it's essentially what he's talking about.
Yep. But it makes sense that that the temper and tempo are related, which I think is it's really. I mean, if you think about it, like when you get angry, your temper goes up, but so does your heart rate. So so yeah, it's kind of cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I never thought about that. And when you're listening to when you play something fast, your heart rate goes up. Though it's funny, you don't get angry. Unless it's heavy metal,
well,
maybe you are getting angry
depends on the
in a
kind
good
of
way.
music you're listening to. If it's the Beatles, I'm getting angry, so whatever. Dave Matthews Band, getting angry.
So it's who you're listening to. That's funny. I have some stuff further down on the page. I don't know if you have more after that.
Go ahead, go.
So he states that he feels better, right? He states that smiling immediately relieved much of the tension. He said it was at a point where he could spend the rest of the day feeling like this. And it goes on and says, and which is kind of what we're talking about, it's always the first thing you should do whenever you want to feel better. It works for anything, even nervousness or stage fright, he revealed. It's also infectious. People around you will start smiling too. And that's, it's essentially what we're talking about when we're dealing in that thing. And I do love the fact that Victor says, I don't get stage fright. And he says, I don't get stage fright, but I will try it for everything else, meaning smiling.
Right.
And Sam goes, oh, you will. But doesn't acknowledge if it's stage fright. I love that part.
Yeah.
Now that leads into the next thing. I don't know if you underlined it.
Probably. Oh, my Kindle just shut off. Go ahead.
On that page 150, it says you should bless your headache. And basically what he's telling Victor is bless it. Appreciate what it's telling you, what's important. And he goes on to state that it's an indicator, right? It's telling your body something. and he uses the gas tank needle in your car, or I guess digital display, showing you how much gas you have, and it tells you when it's empty. So you should be thankful for that.
Look at you, fancy with a digital gas display.
Well, I'm just,
You're so fancy.
there are probably some people that don't know what a needle is in a car. No, but yes. So it tells you that it's going to be empty, so you can fill up before you get to the point of not having gas in your car.
Mm-hmm.
And he says at the bottom of the page, he goes, treat your headache like a little light. When your headache shows up, you should first be thankful for it. Know it's here as an early warning, then deal with it right away. In other words, if your timing is right, you can erase the problem before it becomes one.
Mm-hmm.
And, I never thought about it that way with a headache.
I didn't either.
And when after listening to this, reading it, listening to it, and then reading it again, I'm like, there have been many times that I've gotten a headache and I realized that I drank water and I was feeling better.
Yep.
Like it was a dehydration thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or it was a tension headache and I had to look away from the screen.
Yep. I am shocked that I don't have a headache all the time I drink that little water. Like, I must be dehydrated all the time. And
How do you not drink water?
Because I drink the stuff in this red can. Hashtag not sponsored.
Not sponsored by the red can. That's too funny. And then he states, like, they talk about what it could be a warning, a sign of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is it warning about? What's the cause? And all that stuff from there. And sometimes the root may be buried way down deep, but it must be dug up. It must be exposed so that it can be worked on and prevented in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like becoming aware of your surroundings and becoming aware of the headache. And you will get different headaches. If you're going to go literal, there are different types of headaches out there.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But it's a very interesting case.
And I think it also goes to, the mental health aspect of it all too. Then that's why he kind of says you have to get to the root of the problem. Like, the root of the problem might not be, well, I'm dehydrated. It might be, there's something going on that you need to sort out mentally or even physically, I mean, for that matter. But, being able to find the root of the problem is the most important thing. Because without that, you can't solve the problem.
Right.
So.
And I agree, because I think as I show the book to the camera, so those who are seeing it on YouTube can see it, but those who are listening, I'm showing the book to Kyle through the camera that he can see part of it because of the way the camera is. But the idea is
I've got one over here. I can see the full thing over there on that side. So I've got partial you, then full you over there. And full you over there, too. I've got you in 3 spots.
Oh, you got me in 3 I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I feel like a lot of this book is anxiety. A lot of this book is nervousness.
Yep.
A lot of this book is him, like we've said it before, going through his mental health. And whatever the extreme is, whatever it may be, it's his mental health that he's processing.
Yeah.
And it was his way of writing it down and sharing his thoughts to help others process their mental health, whether it's through music or something else.
And here's a weird, relationship here, but I'm rewatching Star Wars Rebels. I don't know if you've watched Star Wars Rebels yet.
I haven't. I know you mentioned it to me
It's
before.
good. So, I mean, I'm in the first, 10 episodes, 10 chapters, good Lord, 10 episodes. And it's when Ezra Bridger, the main character, is like trying to like find himself, and like he's becoming aware of his how sensitive he is to the Force, and so dealing with the fact, dealing with his life the way he was brought up because he's a young kid, he's starting, and I think that's part of it is dealing, finding he could not control the Force until he realized what was really bothering him, and he tried to repress that so he could, live and survive.
Right. And part of that is generational. Like, mental health was not looked upon in the way that it is now. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that it's looked upon the way it is now, and it's being seen as a health issue versus not. But like, growing up, I'm sure for Victor, because he's older than us, but even for us, like, it wasn't something that you talked about a lot. It wasn't out in the open. Mm-hmm. And if you did talk about it, it was behind closed doors, and that was it.
Right.
And it's sometimes even your families just didn't know they didn't either know how to talk about it or they didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
And and I'm sure I mean, it sounds like his parents were pretty solid with a lot of things.
Yeah, I think they were too.
And I think that's why he's able to do what he's doing. But he's the runt of the litter. He's the youngest of all kids, right?
Yep, he is.
So I'm sure there's something that he was processing. And if not, he did a heck of a job in this book.
Yep. And another thing that, I mean, I started reading another book. So I finished the one that you gave me a while back ago. And I started one of Tom Brown's books last night, actually, called Spirit Awakening, I think.
That was the other one I wanted to get because I picked up Grandfather.
Yeah. So, in this one, it's the beginning part where he introduces you to his grandfather, and his grandfather goes on this spirit journey, and it's a lot about religion and spirituality, and he starts to analyze what he calls the white man does religion wise, and he stumbled upon a church, and the church was surrounded by a bunch of woods, so he sat in the woods and watched the church, and realized that the people only go to the church once a week, right. And he was trying to figure out why, because in his culture they celebrated what he calls the Creator all the time, every day. There were special things that they did, and he's trying to figure out why this white man has stopped doing that, or doesn't do that. Why are they searching for not spiritual gains, but physical gains. That's what they're focusing on. Because he started to listen to what the pastor was saying and all that sort of stuff, and it was all focused on the physical, not the spiritual. So it's almost like, I don't know where I was going with this, but how much of this we've brought on ourselves, and how we've done this to ourselves. And I've said it before too, like why do we have a 40-hour work week? Like, we did that to ourselves. Why do we have money? We did that to ourselves.
It's that whole societal thing where the society was built up, and
yep.
That whole running thing back in the 50s and the 60s and 70s that I'm talking about in the 1900s, where it was like house, white picket fence, wife, 2 kids, car in the garage, this, that,
credit card debt,
and not even I'm talking even before that. Where credit cards weren't even a big thing. It's
but that came about too. It's like we did that to ourselves. It's like,
right. We proposed this is how it should be, and we're gonna.
And it doesn't seem natural, and it's like what? Why did we do it this way? Like there has to be a more natural, better way.
At some point, there were 2 men fighting.
Right.
Like, there's no other way to really put it.
Yep.
At some point, there was a man or 2 men fighting, and they were like, this is how it should be.
Well, if there was only one man fighting, and he was fighting himself, that's mental health.
You know what
mental
I mean?
health,
but
right
you know
there.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, it was one of those things like, this is what I believe, and this is what we're going to make happen, and I can make it happen. And and that's what happens. And then you have these followers, and you have this, and you have that. And, I'm sure we can go back to a certain point in time and where it occurred. And, and then, like, I'm not speculating. I'm not saying I know history. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm just saying, like, if we look at patterns, I'm sure there's a pattern. I'm sure there's some research and all that stuff. But yeah, and it's funny how this chapter brought us to that.
Yeah.
And further down on the page, just to go back, I don't know if, okay, I read that. Hold on a second. He says, then you should thank it. Like, you should thank your headache.
Yep.
And when I read that, I kept thinking about the fact that you talked about in the past, before we even talked about the book, that you thank your instruments after you play them. And we interviewed your friend Rachel, and she does the same thing. She thanks her instrument after she plays them. And I never really did that. Not even as a singer. I never really thanked my voice, which when I first said it to myself, I should thank my voice. When we were talking about it, I'm like, that sounds so weird. I'm thanking myself. But I'm not. I'm thanking a part of my body to give me that ability. And however you want to see, whether it's a gift from God, whether it's just whatever you want to call it, I'm not calling it, I'm talking an ability that I have, a talent that I have. You have a talent, you're able to play an instrument, you're able to sing yourself. Like that talent, you wouldn't think about thanking yourself, but really you should.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and to thank a headache, I thought, well, that's kind of weird.
It is.
But he does say, you know, he thanked his headache, and he was proud and happy that it was acted in as an early warning system for showing up and gently nudging him back on track. He also welcomed it to return anytime he needed it to. It actually felt really good to thank my headache, and to my surprise, after I was finished, my headache was gone. And I really feel like that actually happened.
I do too.
Like, I know there's a lot of stuff in here that you question the truth or not, but I really think that actually happened.
Yep.
That he was like, oh, yeah, thank you. Boom, gone. Like, I don't know if you have more to go on in that.
I don't have much for a while, actually.
Okay, so I'm going to jump to a little further ahead. And he talks about, you know, we're going to walk, you know, a headache is a lot about timing. You know, he states how the headache is like, it's happening before something worse happens. So it's timing. It's like perfect timing, you know, before your body actually breaks down, whether it's dehydration, whatever it may be, you know, your headache's telling you something. So then he decides to pull out a drum machine out of his bag. This is Sam. And he says, now play something. And Victor plays something that he's played all the time. And Sam is like, no, you do that all the time, so stop doing that. And he turns around and he says, okay, then stop thinking about it. Your rhythm is all screwed up. I thought that was interesting. And he goes, if you have to think about them all the time, it will show up in your playing. So anything that you're playing, and if you continue to play only your bass and your licks, then you'll never get to play music. With a capital M.
And that's actually the next thing I had highlighted. So.
Oh, okay. So please talk to it, because I didn't know if that's how far you were.
Yeah. You know, it's so easy, and this is a struggle that I think a lot of musicians these days fall into, and I did to a certain extent as an organist. It's like you kind of play the same hymns over and over and over again, and they kind of lose that specialness. You know, so one of the things I always try, and like even playing a hymn, you know, over and over again, you know, because you know there are several hymns like, what's the one? We know that God. Oh, what is it? No, Awake, Awake, and Night is Falling. I think has 19 verses. Like you play that thing 19 times, you're gonna lose your freaking mind. You know, so the challenge is like for me as an organist, because and you know, as a musician too, like my brain will get bored. I need to do something different every single verse, whether it's change your registration or put the melody in a different voice. I got to do something different because I will get bored and I will forget what I'm doing and then totally screw up. And I think a lot of, you know, when you see a lot of these bands that are going on tour, they're doing the same set every night, the same songs every night in the same order. And like listening to Bela Fleck play, like when they do, like they might play the same stuff every night, but it's always in a different order. You know, it's always
different order, and they probably jam out at different times too. So it may be the same piece at the beginning, but in that middle part, it's going to be different than what the person heard the night before.
Yep.
Right. That's interesting. But it's true. The repetitiveness can really cause it could really get you into a state where you're just like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
And that's where Dave Matthews Band loses me. You know,
okay.
So like a lot of his stuff, at least the stuff that I've listened to, it's like one instrument starts and they start just playing a loop, and the other guy joins in and he does a loop, and the other guy joins in and he does a loop, and then someone solos for a while, then he plays a loop, and the other guy solos for a while, and then they do another loop, and it's like it's the same stuff. But if you listen to like Robert Randolph and the Family Band, like I think the loop part is, first off, it's less prepared. they're figuring it out as they go along, and
Right.
it's more organic, I guess is the word I was looking for. And on top of that, it's different. It's not really a loop. It's, there's a repetitive groove, but it's not. They're not playing the same thing over and over again.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I was noticing as I was driving to work today. Like, I was listening to Live at the Wetlands, which is straight up jam band. Like, that's what it is. The first song is called Ted's Jam. Like, it is a jam song. Like, that's all it is. And it's just these different ideas, and they play around with these different ideas, and they move it along, but it never sounds repetitive to me, which is why I love it.
Well, and I think that this is where we're going in this chapter, is they talk to that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Where they bring out, where he starts using the drum machine to get Victor to internalize the tempo, the rhythm of what's happening. And he I don't know what you were going to talk to, so I don't know. I don't want to jump over anything you're saying.
You go.
So he what they're doing is they, not to, we want you to read the book, so I don't want to read the right out. So basically, he has a drum machine out. He puts it on. He puts a beat and a tempo going, and he has Victor plays, and he slowly removes certain elements of it, so it forces Victor to really pay attention to the beat and the tempo and the rhythm by internalizing it.
Right. He's working on his internal time.
And and telling Victor that, hey, listen, at some point you may play with a drummer that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
If you internalize what's going on, you could still sound good and make it sound even better.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets him to the point where he goes, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of you, I'm gonna let me know. But this is starting at the bottom of page 154. Even though the drums are not playing, the pulse is still there. You got to grab onto that pulse as quickly as you can and lock it into your body.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important that you do that. Then you will feel where you need to be at all times.
Right.
And then they continue on this process of developing internal clock, like get into the groove, which he talks a lot, like the groove, and get into the groove.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts making it harder and harder and harder and harder to do this. But then at some point he tells him, okay, now that you've played this rhythm, this bass line or whatever, add to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it changes it from being a repetitive motion. So you still have that bass line that's going to keep the song going.
Yep.
But he's adding those little frills at the end of each measure, or at the end of every 4 measure, at the end of 3 measures.
Yep. And I think the one thing that I would add to that is right before that, it is something that I used so many times with my kids. Sam says, I recommend that you hear the drummer as you play. Even before you play, hear the drummer in your head. Do that for a few bars before you begin this time. And I can remember so many times, like especially when kids were doing like sight reading and stuff, getting prepared for NYSSMA, like they would just start playing, and I'm like, whoa, like dude. First off, what I would do is I'd say, okay, I turn the page over. What key are you in? And they go, like, then why are you starting to play? Like there are questions that you need to ask yourself before you start.
Right.
They give you time to look it over. Take that time. Like, this is what you need to do. So we'd go over, like, how do you analyze this piece before you actually play it? And then they would go through those, answer the questions that I would give them, and they just start playing. I go, all right, well, what was your tempo? I go, I don't know. Like, you need to start that tempo before you, and I would always say, start the tempo in your head. When you figure out what that tempo is, slow it down, and then start. Because they always wanted to go too fast. Like, sight reading is not about how fast you can play. It's about how musical can you make it the first time you do it.
Right, exactly. And that's very true. I was bad with sight reading when it came to playing on the saxophone, and I should have been better about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally get that. I mean, I got better, but I'm just saying, like, that was one of the things I struggled with because of that reason. Like, I just rushed through it. I didn't take the time that I should have taken with it.
And I love the analogy of the explosion on the downbeat.
Yes.
That's one of my, like, I use that all the time too. Those two things are, like I told you before, like, this is a chapter that I relate to and have relied on so much in my teaching. And there's another thing that Victor did called the Groove Workshop. And he brought in Anthony Wellington, who is one of his friends and his bass tech. And Anthony does this thing he calls the ruler of time, I think he calls it, where he does and essentially it's what Sam was doing in a simpler sense, is that he wrote down 4 bars of 4 beats in the measure, so 4 bars of 4/4, and then he would put an X every 16th note. And the idea is that you should be able to go through and shift that X 1/16th note every time you go through it. So the first time you're on the downbeat of 1, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it's on the E of 1, so it's 1 E and 2, 3, 4. Then it's on the and 1 and 2, 3. And you should be able to go through and go every 16 beats forwards and backwards. And then when you can do that, then you do it as a 3-note figure, because it's 3 against 4. It's not really a triplet, but it's 3 against 4. But your brain doesn't want to do that. But if you can do that, like, your time is so much better. And you can figure out any rhythm that you ever will see, ever, if you can do that. And that's what I was starting to teach my kids. And like my kids' rhythm went from here to like, it was amazing.
But it's amazing. And it sounds like so out there, but in a sense, it's really not.
Yeah.
It's not out there. It's just looking at that whole concept a little bit differently. The way it's typically taught.
Yep.
Stepping away from that in a sense.
Yep. On 154, he says, even though the drums are not playing, the pulse is still there. You got to grab on that.
That's what I read.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's what I read. No. But if you have something to add to it, please do.
No, I thought I was going into something else. So keep going.
No. You have more on that page after that?
I'm good after that. Sorry.
Okay. No, don't be.
I don't listen to you. So listeners, I don't listen to them ever. So.
Jumping to page 156, he said he was talking about the frills and how he would do the frills. He'd revert back. He said, keep your focus on the pulse, not on what you're playing, because that'll allow you to continue to play without having to worry about playing.
Right.
And then he told him to do an all-out solo. And I think, is that where he gets into the explosion?
No, that was before.
No, that was before, right?
Yep.
And he says, when you get to a place where you can solo to just 1 beat every 4 measures and not lose the pulse, playing with a drummer, even a bad drummer, will be a piece of cake. And then he goes in and shows Victor how it's done. And this whole scene is crazy.
Yep.
And it's such a small part of this chapter, but it's interesting. So I'm going to let you take the reins on it, because I don't know what you were going to share.
So on 155, Sam says, music is alive, and if you treat her that way, she will speak to you. You will feel her pulse. That is her heartbeat. If you pay attention correctly, it won't matter if you're in another room or another state. You'll still be able to feel it. So basically what Sam did, is this where he did it? Hang on.
Did you say page 158?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So basically what Sam did was he started a metronome playing 1 beat every 4 measures. So, and then he totally forgot about the pulse. And then just went on about his day and just did, whatever, got a drink, went to the bathroom, did this. And every single time that downbeat of 1 came, he knew exactly where it was every single time. And this is something that I used to do a lot. I used to just put a metronome on in my house and just walk around and just do stuff and see if I could find the pulse. And I got really good at it for a while. And in fact, there was about a 2-week period where I was so good, I was actually able to give my metronome to my student and go put on whatever metronome marking you want. And they could change it, and I would know exactly where it was. I could feel it.
That's awesome.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know I can't do it right now, but I was at a point where I could do it while they changed the metronome tempo. So,
do you catch yourself in a room where there's no music playing and you find a sound that's going out rhythmically and you try to match it and keep with it?
Yep.
I do it with, I'll be driving and the blinkers on the cars.
Yep.
I try to see how off they are
or
from
the
each
bumps
other.
on the road. Yep.
or the bumps on the road, or even the windshield wipers to the blinkers if the windshield wipers are going. Like right now in the back around of me, I have the clock on the wall, and I hear the and it's just enough, but I hear it, and if we stop talking, I'm with it.
Yep.
But I'm so used to, it like, so I don't hear it, but I do hear it.
Right.
Like that type of thing. Yeah, no, it's funny sometimes I don't do it on purpose. It's just like you're focusing on something, whether it's your work or whatever, and there's just that random sound, and you notice that it's a repetitive sound, and now you're finding out, is it every 4 beats? Is it every 3 beats? What is going on? Like, what's the rhythm to it? And then you try to lock into it.
Yep.
Yeah. After that, he does state, it doesn't have to take long to learn what I just did. Music is played from the mind, not the body. So do whatever you can to exercise your mind. That's very important. And it's funny because we're taught to play from how we feel and from the inside. And it's not that they're telling you not to play with how you feel, but it's all mind over. It's like mind over matter. And that, like, at first I was like, but I'm supposed to play what I feel. Like, I'm not supposed to play with my, but it makes sense though.
Yep.
Like, your mind is what's processing all this stuff. It was weird. It was weird to read, but at the same time, you're like, oh, it makes so much sense. But it's still, it's so hard to grasp the concept.
And then Sam leaves.
Yep. But to return and say, 1.
Yep.
And I love one of the last things he says. He goes, timing is everything, isn't it?
Yep.
But it's true. Timing is everything. I mean, think about it. When you approached me about the podcast, and I was going to bring this, this was my thought process on that. I was going through my whole thing where it's like, I'm not doing anything with music. It's blowing my mind. And I was like, I need to do something. And it was just at that moment that I was processing all that. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Maybe I'll do a song. Maybe I'll do it. And then you reached out to me like, hey, like, I have an idea. What do you think? Do you want to do this? And it was timing.
Yeah.
Like, and it was timing for you, timing for me. It's putting trust in the universe around you, in a sense.
Yep.
Well, Kyle's bored. He's yawning. Do you have anything else from that chapter you would take out, or
no? That's all I got.
State about it.
It's a quick one,
But it is. But it's all about timing. It really is.
Yep.
That all being said, when this episode comes out, we return to playing Victor Wooten on Sundays on our live Twitch. And part of that is to kind of immerse ourselves more into Victor Wooten's mind or creativity or whatever,
and see how much it relates to the book.
Right. And the reason why we changed them up is if a musician that has passed that we feel we should honor or recognize, we've done it. So like we've had 2
I think you better
live
recognize
where we celebrated the life of Harry Belafonte and his music, and we celebrated the life of Gordon Lightfoot and his music, and which is nice to do because, as we said on the live shows, and we probably said last podcast episode, that these musicians are getting to that age.
Yep.
A lot of these influential musicians and writers and stuff are older now, and have lasted decades in their field because of how important their music is. Oh my goodness, it just hit me.
What?
Reading the second book, The Music Lesson, and what the meaning of it is, and how much it's like the meaning hits even more now that these musicians are moving on and transitioning. Oh, the next half of this podcast season is going to be intense. as we continue on in this book, because there's not that many chapters left, I believe we have 4 or 5 left in this book.
Sounds about right.
I think there's 11 total. And then he has, there's measure 11, and then it goes, the last chapter is called the coda. The last measure. There's the dream. Oh, no, there's the dream, and then it goes into the coda.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's the last thing. So we have, like, in the sense of chapters, we have about 5 left, 5 or 6 left. But the last few are not that long. They're more of a kind of like a recap or where he's going. Yep. The book, as you know, is The Music Lesson by Victor Wooten. And we will move on after we end with these chapters onto The Spirit of Music by Victor Wooten. Sharing our musical journey through this book as we share the chapters. Yep. Just check out our show notes. Mm-hmm. Hit us up on our socials. Check out our live show. Kyle goes live on Twitch 8 o'clock on Friday nights. Mm-hmm. We go together 7:30 on Sunday nights. Yep. It's just relaxing conversation, nothing crazy, just a good time with some music. Yep. So join us there. And as you know, every Tuesday our episode comes out. Every Monday our episode goes out on YouTube, but they're like 4 or 5 weeks out from the launch of the episodes. And then every Friday Kyle launches some fun shorts on YouTube as well. Yep. And all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. We appreciate you listening each week. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Turn on the Music podcast. We hope that you join us next week. Click on the link tree in our show notes to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our Twitch and YouTube channel. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join us on our Discord. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend. And if you really want to help us promote the show, head over to Apple Podcasts or the podcast service of your choice and give us a 5-star rating. Remember, always share the music.